Hello, we're going to go over the 2.7 notes on this video. If you're listening to this video and you're in my class, you should have these done by the time I get back, which will be Friday. This is the quadratic formula. You've learned the quadratic formula before, so it should sound extremely familiar. So as it says at the top, just a couple facts. You want to make sure you're working with a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation has an x squared in it. It could have a plain old x and a constant term, but it definitely has an x squared. The quadratic formula. If you have something in standard form, a is the coefficient on x squared, b is the coefficient on x, and c is your constant term, then x equals, you should memorize this, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then that is all over 2a. So that is a big deal. So we're gonna highlight it. We're gonna put some stars around it. Know it, learn it. And one more. There we go. All right, so we use the quadratic formula to solve for x. Now, previously we've used factoring, but the only problem is factoring doesn't work all of the time. Factoring only works if you can factor it, and sometimes your solutions are prime, so factoring will not work then. We've also solved equations that involve imaginary numbers. The quadratic formula will give you complex numbers, and those are ones that involve imaginary numbers. And as previously mentioned, it must be in standard form. So you want to start with your x squared, then your x, then your constant term. And again, your constant term is just your plain old number. And when you do the quadratic formula, a can either be positive or negative. It does not matter. If you do it with a as positive, you'll get one answer. If a is negative, that's going to change all the signs. If all the signs change, it still works actually. Question 6 and 7 says change to standard form. Again, standard form is that right there. So I like everything on the left. If you want to move everything to the right, you can, but then you're just going to have all of your a, b, and c will be the opposite signs. But there's only two things on the right, so I'm going to get rid of those two things. So the opposite of 4x squared is minus 4x squared. The opposite of minus 3 is plus 3. Do that to both sides. So 1 minus 4 is negative 3x squared. Minus 3x, 2 plus 3 is 5. So now you're in standard form. Number 7, same exact idea. If you want to, you could move it to everything to the right. If you want to do that, we'll do it. Why not? So we'll add 1x squared and minus 9x. So now I've got nothing on the left, but then I've got 2x squareds on the right, 4 minus 9 is negative 5x, and a minus 1. Looking at these, just make sure you understand. You want everything to one side equal to 0. So a is 2, b is negative 5, and c is negative 1. Same thing with number 6. Even though everything's on the left, that's fine as long as it's all together in order. So a is attached to the x squared, which is negative 3. b is attached to the x, which is negative 3. And c is your constant, or your plain old number, which is 5. We're going to talk about the discriminant of the quadratic formula. You're going to hear that word a lot. The discriminant is just the part underneath the radical. So again, that's a super important word. The discriminant is going to tell us how many solutions something has.